record on this computer, and we're recording now.
Okay. I thought yours was really good. I liked how you had um, different activities for them. So you had them like collaborate with each other, and then you like went over it, and then you asked them questions, and then you had them do a worksheet on their own. I thought that was really good because you um, had different elements of the UDL and learning needs, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, and then for your lesson, I thought it was really. I like what was it, the fortune teller,
Oh,
the
the
color
cootie
catcher.
catcher, yeah.
Yeah, I forget what it's called. But I thought that was like a good way to kind of make it like not boring because some kids are like, ugh, I hate discussing it. I like that you had them write in their journals. So I think you chose something that was already like natural for them, like already
Yeah.
implemented. Um,
Was I think reading comprehension is really hard and boring usually, so I tried to find something that was not boring and kind of fun so they could be engaged with it.
yeah, definitely. I think that was a lot more like engaging, like using that and then having them write after, because then it's like, oh, like I already did my partner work, like it's time for me to show what I know.
Yeah.
You Did you feel so like one of the questions is like, did you feel like any kids like didn't really learn anything from that activity?
Um, yeah, 'cause I felt like some of them are really advanced, so I felt like it was kind of like something really easy that they've already done before, and they didn't really learn anything.
Mm-hmm.
I did feel like some of them did learn like questions stuff they could ask each other when writing a summary. So I
Yeah.
thought the cootie catcher assignment was really good because it asked them questions about what happened in the story so they could use that for their summary.
Yeah. What about like kids that you felt like maybe struggled? I'm not sure how close if you've read their summaries yet, but did you have any kids who like really struggled?
Um, no, not really. I had some that like only wrote kind of like what I said,
Mm-hmm.
or they only wrote like a few sentences that didn't really like explain like what happened in the book. It was more of, or I mean, they explained what happened in the book, but it wasn't like this was the resolution, this was the climax. It was more of like what happened in the story.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because I think like I wasn't too sure if you did, but I think like to kind of combat that, like if you're trying to hit those key elements, like in my lesson, I don't know if you saw like I wrote the objective and we went over it. I think
Oh,
if you like if you write the objective like today we're gonna focus on writing about the climax or whatever it is, I think you would get more of like what you wanted to see
okay.
versus like because you know kids like if you give them any free any slight chance of letting them do whatever they want, they'll
Yeah.
who knows, they probably would have rewrote you the story if, if they had time. um
Yeah, I think next time if I did that, I would go over what I like the objective and what I actually want in it.
yeah, I feel like the class though, like overall it was like a smaller class.
Yeah,
um
it's really small.
and I mean like you didn't have like any behavioral issues. Like in my video I had few kids who were kind of like they're like
Yeah, I
that
saw
in
that.
general, but that's why like I tried to. If I don't know if you saw in the video, like I was walking constantly.
Yeah.
But I think for you, like for that class in particular, like that wasn't like an issue. I think the classroom management was like really well, and I think most of the kids look focused. And like that who I don't know who was recording, but like they would zoom in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's really funny.
yeah.
How did you feel? Did you feel like there was some students who like already knew it and didn't really learn anything?
Um, when I think a lot of them understood like what a prefix is, and that's why I was like, oh, we already know this. But a lot of them don't understand, like they didn't understand like what certain prefixes mean. So a lot of them learned a lot of new stuff. Um, like my higher kids, like the higher kids in there were very much like the concept was easier to grasp. But I have like in my work samples, there's like one kid who like this is a third grade class, who can't really read anything. So like his whole worksheet is just like literally letters that look like words, but they're not words at all.
Oh.
So it was kind of like over his head.
Is he an English language learner, or does he have an IEP?
I think they're in the process of getting one for him, but no, just a lot of like family things that go on at home. So
I see.
But so he didn't really grasp anything. So I tried to ask him like orally. So like if you saw me walking, I stopped with the kid. I usually try to ask him like a verbal question because sometimes some of this kid's like writing skills aren't there. But I did get stuck on when like one of the kids like some of them took it as like if you add dis or miss to anything, it makes a word. Like somebody was saying like mistriggered or distriggered, and I was like, no.
I know.
But that's like something like I think that I didn't really think about. Like I teach full time, but I teach math and not literacy. So I was like, so like math concepts are a lot easier for me to like pinpoint misconceptions and like plan for like things like that.
Yeah.
But here, like I feel like, especially like in the learning map, like I feel like we did a lot of focus in the class like on learners and everything, but we didn't really talk about like what happens if this happens.
Right.
Or like if somebody goes super off track. And I think in my lesson, like I didn't plan that well for it. And it's kind of like stuck. I was a little stuck with them. But I think like overall, what I liked about your lesson was that you also did a read aloud. I think where were like areas that you were trying to kind of differentiate work more, or you feel like you didn't really do it too much?
I'm sorry, I cut out. What did you say?
So like what were like areas in your lesson that you were trying to differentiate based on like levels? Or if you didn't quite, what do you think you can do next time?
Based on levels, I think I tried to include like everyone in it. So I tried to make it not too hard or not too easy. I feel like it was more on the easy side for my high learners. But I really tried to pick something that would involve all of my learners, so it wasn't too too difficult or too easy.
Yeah, and I definitely think like with the partner work that allowed them to kind of like even if they didn't write a good summary, like I think at least having like that verbal feedback and discussion with their peers allowed them to kind of express, because sometimes kids are just not great writers and they still struggle with that. But yeah, I think your lesson went really well. I think towards the end you kind of walked around a little bit more. I think if you walk around more, like you can definitely like those kids who struggle more, I think you can like get like kind of see how they're doing and collect data if you just like go near them and kind of ask them a question or have them explain something, because then it'll give you a better idea of what they're capable of.
How did you feel about that, about yours?
I think I needed to do like a better way of differentiating like the worksheet. Like I think, like I don't know if you saw in my video where like somebody was like, "What's an illustration?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a drawing." I think like I should have differentiated the worksheet more based on the kids, like what they're capable of. Because if you didn't ask that question, I wouldn't have known. Like, and then I probably would have got weird stuff on that worksheet.
I think also maybe like going over like each directions might be good.
Yeah.
Because then you can say like what you expect for like each answer, kind of like what you were saying for my summary. I
Yeah.
think it would be good too. Because there's a teacher that I know, what I sub for her a lot, and with everything, every direction, she'll say out loud every direction and what she expects for each thing, and like they highlight what they the important part of the question, and then she writes out like show work on this one or whatever. So
Yeah, I think definitely I'll try to do that for the next lesson just because I think some of the kids were like they didn't understand like what they really should focus on because like the drawings were beautiful, but I'm like, you didn't even do the definition. Like I was like, that's what I need to know. I don't care how well you draw. Uh, but yeah,
yeah.
like going back to that. Um, let me see. So how do you think you can like in terms of like UDL, like when it came to presentation, like how do you think you will maybe like modify it or anything? Like what do you think would be more engaging for them? Like I feel like they like the book, but I think if you like maybe pause and like ask a question or like highlighted
Yeah,
important things.
that's what I thought. And I had a lot of trouble finding a book that was not too like kindergartnerish or first grade for them, but also not like a chapter book that was
Yeah.
too long. I tried to find something that had a lot of um, like climax and resolution and a lot in it that they could write about.
Yeah. That's actually one of my favorite books. So
Yeah, too.
I was like, oh.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's one thing I've learned, especially from this class, is that to ask questions during the books and to get them thinking about the book and not just just listening and having it go over their head.
Yeah.
So
Also
um,
there's an app called Novel Effect or something. It's free. But what the app does, like if you wanted to make reading a little bit more fun, I'm not sure what grade levels you're trying to focus on. But this app, it has a bunch of books on it. And as you're reading aloud the book, it'll play like sound effects in the background or like
oh really?
melodies. It's like super cool. But I think it's called Novel Effect. It's free. Um, but
That's
I
so
use that
cool.
for like my son and stuff, and I think that might help with like even if it's like a super boring book or like a super boring chapter, you can do that. And I definitely think like I've seen teachers where they'll play like the ebook and then students are able to follow along, but it also like doesn't tire you out. Like if you need to like if a student didn't quite understand a sentence before, you can like easily go back and just rewind it. That might help. But
Yeah, I like that, especially for the younger grades too. I think it makes it more fun for
yeah,
them.
and engaging. What
How
about
did
in
you,
terms of like your like the way that kids were able to show you mastery? Like what are things that you think you can do next time? Like versus just writing. Like what else do you think you can do?
so one thing I was going to write in my reflection is that I should have had them write on binder paper instead of their journals because I couldn't take their journals with me
Uh-huh.
because it's their writing in their desk. So I would have done that, or I would have done like a worksheet. I was thinking of doing like they have worksheets where you read like a little paragraph and then you answer like comprehension questions on it.
Hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think like a quick exit ticket probably would have been able to help you get like that data better. 'Cause, I mean, unless it's like your full on classroom, then you can always read their journal. But
Yeah.
I think like if you're teaching a specific skill, like if you're telling them like you need to understand when the climax happened or
Right.
whatever it is, like I think a quick exit ticket would give you good data. Unless you're like really good about like circulating and looking at their journals as you go, but I think as like new teachers is really hard.
Yeah.
um, But yeah, I felt like I was able to collect all the data. I like a majority of the kids got it except for like probably like two or three, but those were students who were kind of like they're very far below grade level, and I think
Yeah.
like if it was my own classroom, it would probably be like you'll do something like you'll do a small
Right.
group like focusing on more foundational skills, even though prefixes are foundational, but if you can't
Yeah,
even
and I think
read, then it's not worthwhile, you know?
yeah, and I think it was hard too because it's not my class, and
Mhm.
I've stubbed for them a lot, but I'm not with them every day, so I don't know what they already know and what
Yeah.
they don't know and their routine and all of that. How did you feel about the UDL with your lesson? I thought it was really good because you hit different parts of the UDL and then you gave the students a lot of opportunity to show what they know by like the group um, collaboration, or you're asking them questions and then the worksheet, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, like I tried to like I played the video because that class in particular, like they like that stuff, like
Oh
listening
yeah,
to
I
songs
forgot
and
about the
things like
video. Yeah.
that. So the source that I use is full vocabulary, so they're kind of like hip hop
Oh,
themed educational resources, so you can always use it. They have it for like math, history, literacy,
what is
even
this
so
called?
vocabulary.
Vocabulary.
Yeah. But they also have it for like life skills, social skills, a bunch of stuff.
Wow, that's cool.
Um, so I thought like that would kind of like perk them up, like, oh, like prefixes. Yeah, I
Mhm.
remember. And the reason why we did a lot of like oral, like you tell me what you know, and kind of I was pushing more for discussion, but they were just done testing. Like they were testing for four
Oh,
months. I mean, not 4 months, a whole month. So they
oh
were
my
like, yeah,
wow.
because they had, yeah. So they've been testing for like 4 weeks already. So at that point, they were kind of like tired and beat up,
I bet.
but
Yeah.
yeah, like because of like getting to know what the learners are and how they are, like they're very talkative. So it's like if I don't let them discuss this stuff, then they won't listen.
Yeah.
I think that's like something important to note too, is like knowing your learners helps you kind of create how your lessons going to be, like whether it's going to be like very heavily discussion based or like
Right.
work independently. Um, but I think like a big push for me for that particular lesson is just like maybe for that class in particular was just like focusing on one prefix versus two. Um, I think it
Yeah.
was just too much for them to gain new vocab at a time. But then again, it's like in the discussion post, like we've been talking about, like you don't teach like the main idea or anything like in one lesson. It's like a gradual
Right.
thing. Um,
Yeah.
but I think like um, an extension or something that I would do for that lesson is kind of like having them like I think on my worksheets I did a lot of define what the prefix is and then add it to a base word and define that word. I think like my bigger push would be like to have them use it in a complete sentence and things like that.
Oh yeah.
So they kind of understand like it's not just a word, like it can change the meaning of a sentence and things like that. Um, but I think when it came down to like learning characteristics, it's just like the thing I didn't realize, like I like going back was just like misconceptions that they would have, and that's when the whole like somebody said like, oh, like you're Miss Mom or like this mom like means you're not a mom, and I'm like, I guess, but not really. Like that's not a real word. But I think like in your case, like you said, like a lot of the kids are like pretty advanced. I think like
Yeah.
even like pushing like extending the lesson to like I don't know, like even having them write the summary based on a different view, like maybe from like the trees view. Because I think a lot of comprehension for kids is like they lack the ability to do perspective taking. like they can do one character perspective, but then it's hard to do multiple character perspectives. I think that might be a good push for some of your higher kids. Like write about like what the tree like thought. What moment? But yeah, I really liked your lesson. And the activity was really fun. I think they like that. Like it's trendy to do.
Yeah.
And it was like artsy, so they were like, oh, like I get to color this and then use it. So they were like really engaged.
Right.
Is there like ELL learners in there?
No, no, there's not. So it's a English and Spanish class, so they learn English and Spanish.
Okay, so like a dual immersion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah. Um, let me see. Is there anything that kind of caught you by surprise that you didn't think about going into the lesson?
Not really. I mean, like some of them had like silly comments that I'm like, oh wait, I have to deal with this. Or like, like the behaviors and stuff like that. I mean, I didn't have any that were severe, but I was also really nervous because I don't like to be recorded.
Yeah.
And especially when there's another adult in the room too. It's just kind of, and it's not my class. When I'm subbing, it's okay, but like when the teacher's there and it's not my class, and like, what do I do if they start acting out?
Yeah.
So I wasn't really prepared for that, but lesson wise, I think I was pretty prepared, except for the where they're gonna write their summaries. I wasn't sure if they had binder paper in their desks, or the teacher said, oh, just have them write in their journals. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, I feel like teaching a lot of times is like, well, this didn't work out, so we're going to do this, like a lot of in the
Right.
moment. But yeah, I completely understand because I feel like I didn't explain and differentiate the stuff on the worksheet much. But I try to have the worksheet and then like the exit ticket separate because I know that some of them would have worked on the exit ticket as I was speaking.
Yeah.
But I think like your lesson was really well. Was there like a particular standard that you were aiming for?
Yeah, it was summarize a written text read aloud,
Uh-huh.
or in diverse media.
Are they like fourth and fifth graders? Is that what the
It
grade was?
great.
Yeah, I was like they look big. So
Yeah. And they were like done with their testing and they're done with everything, and they were basically just like this was their last week of school.
oh yeah,
So they were just kind of checked out. So I said if I did something that was hard or like like not engaging, they would have just blown it off. So
yeah,
I had to
exactly.
pick something that was kind of fun.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What was your standard? Was it on prefixes?
Yeah, so the standard is like students should be able to like identify and understand like prefixes, which is like important
Right.
because like makes it easier for them to comprehend words and new words that they might like to help them kind of with like not only decoding words but like helping them understand text better.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I focus on that because I'm not really into like reading aloud. Uh, And like the charter school I work at, it's elementary school, but you only teach like math or science.
That's what I was going to ask you about. So it's a charter school then. At charter, you do that?
Yeah. Oh, at least at some charter schools they do, but that's like the way the model is where I work. So I don't teach like third grade math. I just never dealt with third grade literacy.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like
That's interesting.
yeah. So it's kind of like middle schoolish. So they kind of like rotate. So I see like 100 kids every day.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's something else.
So do you have to have a single subject, or is it a multiple subject you have to have
Multiple.
there?
A multiple. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a whole interesting thing. Like, because charter schools, you don't necessarily have to have a credential. You can do an internship program. Um,
I don't know much about charter schools. We have some here, but I don't know much about them. It's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and I think like a big thing at like the school I was at in particular, where I did the lesson was like there's a lot of differentiation. And I think I didn't do that well. So like a lot of the kids who like when I looked at their worksheet, they were like blank or didn't make sense. And I think those are like students who like typically were pulled in a small group.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have done that was like as they're working independently, I think I should have pulled like a small group. Um, and I think that can also help like the same idea of like pulling a small group during your lesson for like your high kids and like having like a rich discussion with them, like extending the lesson probably would like help them not feel like I'm bored, like this is too easy.
Right.
Um,
Do you
but
have English language learners in your class?
yeah, I think like almost all of them are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because the school, it's the same school I work at, but just different. So yeah, a lot of the kids are English language learners. So um, when sometimes
Okay.
when they have the discussions, like they will say things like, if I ask them like question number 4 here, like how do you modify new levels of presentation? Sometimes they'll start off their question with like how I would modify is, and I was like, don't say that.
Oh,
Like I
yeah.
will modify because they don't quite understand. So like our discussion will be rough, but um, if I don't allow for discussions, like their writing is not quite
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And that's like the big push of discussion. And I prefer for like the way because I know the kids and I know the teacher really well. Like we set up the seating for that lesson based on like levels. So I had like high and high kids together because if
Oh,
I have
okay.
like a high and low kid, then the high kid's gonna do more of the talking versus like they're not benefiting.
Right.
So we tried to like move the kids around for that lesson in particular. So when they had partner talks, like it wasn't like somebody talking and somebody just sitting there. Um,
That's interesting. I never thought about that because I always thought that the maybe like a high and a low learner would do well together because the high learner would help them, but I'd never thought about they would just do all the talking. It's
yeah, I think it's just dependent like on your students.
yeah,
Because like some kids are like they still don't know how to like collaborate that well.
right.
I don't know if you've done group projects with kids, but
Oh yeah.
they're still learning like I'm gonna take over, we're gonna do only my idea. um, but I mean it's just dependent on how you like to do your seating charts and stuff, but for that
Right.
lesson we try to do that. I'm gonna plug in my laptop. Oh, oh, sorry, I'm gonna plug in my laptop, it's dying, I didn't realize so
No,
right
it's
now.
fine.
um, but overall for that type of lesson in the future, like what do you think is going to be your big, well, first, what was something that you think you did really well?
What I think I did really well was picking an assignment that would work for them,
Mm-hmm.
and I think tying it all together because I actually spent like a long time trying to figure out what would work well together and what I could use. And I think like yeah, tying it all together and reading the story out loud and then walking around when they were doing their summaries and reading what they wrote and talking to them about it. I think I did well with that.
Yeah.
What did you think you did well with yours?
Um, I think what I did well was like keeping the lesson like short. Um, because I feel like they're 8 years old. They're only really going to listen to you for like a certain amount of time.
Right.
I mean, even as adults, it's hard for you, like us, to like sit, like through like hour-long lectures and things like that. So I think like I kept it really short. And I also just like gave them opportunities to discuss versus like, here, this is what I taught you, do the worksheet, turn it in.
Yeah.
I try to have them do like collaborative work. But I think like my biggest push is to making sure like I define like exactly what I'm looking for. And also just like giving the students like more creativity of what they can, like how can they showcase what they learn versus like you're just gonna do a worksheet and define it. But I think like that can be like, if I'm doing like a whole unit on prefixes, like that can be like our last accumulating project, our final project for that.
Yeah.
But definitely pushing for like differentiating more and like possibly hosting like small groups within that lesson. It's just hard when like the kids are not really your kids.
Yeah, I know it is hard.
You don't spend every day with them, but I think like um, with the learning map, like you can add that information. Like I'm gonna do um, I'm gonna do small groups inside this lesson as well. Yeah. But do you have anything else?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything.
Okay. Well, no. I can go ahead and end the meeting, and then I can send you the video just in case.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great.
Sounds good. Yeah, and just email me if you need any more. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
How do I stop?